keep on shining. I'm about that life, keep on dreaming. I'm about that life, never stopping. What? I'm about that life. I'm about that life. I'm about that life. They say I'm dreaming. Yes, I'm dreaming. So what? I don't care. She's about that life. I'm about that life. It's a dream thing, y'all.
Today on About That Life, I sit down and talk to accomplished dancer, singer, and actress. She received her BA in theater from UCLA. She has worked with great theater companies such as Tuacahn Center for the Arts and Moonlight Stage Productions. She has starred in productions of The Little Mermaid, The Sound of Music, and Chicago. And most recently, she made her Broadway debut with Disney's Aladdin the Musical, playing one of Princess Jasmine's attendants. Here is Nicole Athill.
Okay, Nicole, thank you
Hi,
for being here. You look
Jessica.
beautiful.
Thank you so much too.
How are you doing today? Mhm.
Doing great today. It's a beautiful day in New York, and I'm just so excited to be sitting here and talking to you. So,
Oh, nice. How is the weather out there? Because I'm in LA, so.
yeah, it's beautiful. I mean, we recently had a big heat wave for the last couple of weeks, and so now it's finally like there's no more humidity, but it's
Ugh.
almost like a false fall kind of weather because probably in the next couple of days it'll start to get warmer again before it officially turns into fall. So,
Okay, well, yeah, I'm sorry about the heat wave because we know heat wave out here. So,
oh yes,
Uh,
oh yes.
and I've heard the humidity in New York is unimaginable. So, so I'm
It's not
sorry about
fun, especially being in the city with all the concrete and all the
it.
buildings. It's just there's not a lot of room to breathe at times. So
Did you take an egg outside and put it on the sidewalk and see if it like fried and everything
I did
and
not.
boiled?
I'm pretty sure it would have, especially
Mm.
like those last couple weeks in July into August were pretty brutal, but it's okay.
Wow,
We're through the worst of it now. So,
that's good. I'm happy to hear that. So I want everybody to know how I know you. I met you. We were just discussing that it was 5 years ago at a place called Tuacahn, Center of the Arts. Is in St. George, Utah. We met. We were part of the 2019 summer season, and we did like 3 shows together. It was like summer stock. I'm gonna let you just go from there and tell everybody how we know each other.
yeah, so we did meet at Tuacahn in southern Utah, and we spent like 7 months together doing three different shows in rotation. And it was also really special because I got to understudy you, Taj, which was so amazing and like truly was such an honor because you are incredible at what you do and such a class act. So I felt so honored to just be in your presence, A, and then just be able to watch you perform every night. But yeah, it was such a cool experience that we got to do together, and especially I think it's so rare, unless you're on a tour, doing a regional theater contract for 7 months and like feeling like you
Right?
really get to know people and really get to spend time not only doing the show but also outside of the show and like doing some fun activities and like we would go on little mini trips and like do hiking stuff. So it was really awesome. So that's how we
It
knew.
was. I love Utah. I still miss it. But I want to just piggyback on what you said as far as you are a class act to me, It was I was so grateful that you were there, first and foremost, that we both were Tianas and that we built up this sisterhood that still, is here 5 years later. And you just were so sweet. And I wanted to share this quick story about how we first met because it was
Oh yes,
hilarious.
please.
So, my flight, I arrived like maybe around almost 8 o'clock in Utah, and I had to wait for the rest of my team or the rest of the people that were flying into the airport that day. And they were flying from New York and they all had delayed flights. So I didn't get to our dormitory because we had like dorms that we were staying at that they had the casts living in. I didn't get to my dorm until like maybe almost 11 o'clock after we went to get some grocery shopping done. So I was still trying to gather myself. And then I couldn't find the email where I knew that had the information on where my room was. And I didn't have my roommate's number. I didn't have Kelly's number. So I didn't know where I was going. And I kept trying to like call Sherry, who had all that information. I knocked on your door of all the doors to knock on, like, is this my room? You're like, no, no, no.
So funny because I was like, wait, when was our very first interaction? And now I remember the entire thing. I remember it being late at night. And
Mhm.
my roommate was Katie, and I think we both we were like,
Yeah,
oh,
you and Katie were so sweet about it. You're like, sure, we'll help you out
yeah,
because I'm struggle busting over here trying to get into my room.
yeah. I mean, it's so hard too because it was like a new environment for all of us. And then, like you said, we had like little groupings of like how we would all get there and then get paired with
Yes,
our roommates. So, but I'm glad it
yeah,
ended up working out. And of course, it was a fun little memory of how we first.
absolutely. Yeah, because I was like, oh my gosh, am I gonna have to like, where am I gonna sleep tonight if I can't get into my room and no one's answering and no one's like helping me out? So, but you guys were, so I thank you so much for that. My
Course.
first, yes, my first question is, when did you know you wanted to do musical theater?
Okay, so I started in dance when I was about 3 years old. So I'm originally from San Diego, so not too far from LA.
Mhm.
And my parents put me in dance at the age of 3, and that's kind of where I initially started. So I started taking like ballet, jazz, and tap when I was really little. And then when I was 7 years old, I did my first musical ever. And this was Alice in Wonderland at like the Jacobs Family Jewish Community Center in San
Oh
Diego.
wow.
And it
Oh,
was like so fun. I was a white rose like in the garden when Alice goes like through the garden of all the flowers. I was a little white rose, and that was the first show I ever did. And I remember, at that age, I don't think I was like, oh, I want to do this for the rest of my life. But I remember being just excited about what I was doing, and I just loved being on stage, and I was like, "Oh, I want to do more of this." And so I was very lucky that, after that first show, I did a couple more shows there at the community center. And then as I moved into middle school and high school, I got involved with theater and dance all throughout my years in middle school and high school. So that was kind of, I caught that bug when I was 7, and I continued throughout, the rest of my school years. And it's interesting because it was a production. I did a school edition production of Rent when I was in
mm,
eighth. And I remember thinking, what? Like musical theater can be like that? And so that actually was kind of the moment where I was like, oh, wow, I really, really love this. And that kind of carried me into then wanting to study it in college and then have a career doing it now.
nice. I remember when they started doing the rounds for the high school version of that show. When every
Yeah.
high school wanted to get their hands on that,
Yeah.
everybody was doing Les Mis for a moment, and then when Rent went out for everyone to do high school edition, they everybody was trying to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, it's still popular to this day, and then the movie had came out, so it was getting more popular. So when you were a kid, what did you want to be?
So I remember, I think it may have been when I was in like fifth or sixth grade. I just remember being like, I want to be an actress or a lawyer, like just those two things. And
Wow.
yeah, it was like actress
Okay.
or a lawyer, like very clear cut. And I think it's funny because even though me wanting to become a lawyer never really took off as I got older, I was thinking, but oh, I could be an actress and play a lawyer on a TV show. So like that could maybe work out.
Yeah.
But it is interesting though that like from a young age, I always knew I wanted to act. I don't think I knew in what capacity yet because I was like, oh yeah, like Disney Channel, like that was the big thing, and Nickelodeon. So I think at the time that's what I thought about. And then as I got older and learned more about Broadway and like got to see my first Broadway shows and seeing more movies and being like, oh wow, the Oscars are winning Academy Awards. It like became such a cool thing for me at a young age. But yes, there was a moment where I was like, oh, I might want to be a lawyer too, but maybe I could just play a lawyer on TV or so.
I would love to have seen you do both though. Just juggle doing both, you know. Absolutely. What was your aha moment? Did you ever have a moment where you're like, this is it. I know I'm doing the right thing. I'm stepping into my purpose.
Yeah, I think I feel like there was a couple of building block moments, I would say. I would say that definitely when I did the school production of Rent, that was one turning point for me because at that point I knew about like the traditional musical theater styles and those shows, and I was like, oh yeah, this is really beautiful, like I really love this. But then I didn't realize that like musical theater could be very contemporary, and I just loved that sound. And I was like, you could do this on stage, you can sing this way on stage. So that was like a really key moment for me of like, wow, like this is something that I'm really interested in. And then when I was in sophomore year of high school, sophomore year and junior year, I got the opportunity to play my first principal roles, just like at my school and at my community theater. It was a production of Hairspray, and a funny thing happened on the way to the forum. And it was just the first opportunity I got to be able to really inhabit a character and play a role and be able to sing on stage. And I think it was those moments that really equated to me feeling like, wow, this is something I really love to do. And I've also had always loved seeing shows. So, like in San Diego, whenever a tour would come through, my parents would take my brother and I to see these shows. And I think just continuing to be inspired by what I saw, coupled with the opportunity of actually performing at the same time, it just really um, solidified for me that this was something that I wanted to do.
Who did you play in Hairspray? And funny thing happened over to the forum.
Yeah, so hilarious because in Hairspray, I played Motormouth Mabel. And
Yes.
yes. And then in Forum, I played Philia, the like main lead love interest.
Okay.
That was really cool.
Nice.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
I love that you talked about your parents taking you to the theater, because for me that is definitely a moment that is solidified in my mind, that that's what helped um let me know that this was something that I wanted to do, to sit there with my mom, even though she might have fallen asleep halfway through. I was like, I'm living right now watching this, and I appreciate that she would just do that for me, that she would take me to the theater and let me watch these performances. So how did you feel sitting in those theaters watching that with your family, knowing that they were sort of, supporting this passion that you had?
Yeah, I remember, I mean, this is pretty early on, so I don't have the most vivid memories of this, but my first Broadway show ever was the national tour of The Lion King, and I do,
Oh,
you know, classic go to. It was, yeah. And I remember I was very young then, so from what I can remember, I remember being in the theater, I remember my family being next to me, and I remember the actually the stampede scene is the most vivid memory for me as a kid, which is kind of like maybe not the happiest scene in the show, but I remember being like, what, like I didn't know you can, again, like visually seeing that on stage, and like me being so small and like seeing the grand scale of what these musicals could be. And my first show in New York on Broadway. I was 15 was the first time I visited New York, and we saw Billy Elliot. And I remember, especially with that story being so rooted, or part of it being so rooted in dance and in ballet, I was like, this is unlike anything I've ever seen. And again, as a young kid, seeing other young kids doing what I want to do. Um, and again, my parents being the ones to take us to these shows, both my brother and I. And even though my brother doesn't do theater, he also just has such a big appreciation for it. And my parents have always told me, because they're not artsy people. Like my family, no one else does theater. Like they are all in
Mm,
like business, medicine, like software engineer, that type of stuff. But I think what's so great is they've always supported me no matter what. And I think in me being so passionate about this and doing this, I've kind of in a way grown their passion for it, and now
mm,
they love to come to New York and see shows with me. Or if I say, oh, there's this show that's coming to San Diego, they'll go, or in LA they'll go on their own. So I feel
right.
very lucky and grateful that from a young age my parents were kind of the ones that encouraged me on this journey. So
Oh, yeah, I'm the same way. I'm the only one like that's really doing what I'm doing in the
yeah.
family. I'm the beautiful odd duckling, essentially.
Yes.
But it's all good. I'm thankful for it. Who and what are your inspirations?
Hmm. I would say, particularly for in the realm of theater, I've been referring to this so many times already in this interview, but with Rent, our very first day of rehearsal, we actually watched the filmed stage version of Rent. I
Mm.
think it was the final performance on Broadway. I believe that's
Oh,
what.
wow.
Mhm.
Nice.
And it's funny because it's like, oh, we are starting our first rehearsal just by watching the source material. And in particular, Renee Elise Goldsberry was playing Mimi at the time. And obviously now she's a big Tony winner, is known for Hamilton. And I think that was so significant for me because, again, not only was I watching the show that was groundbreaking to me at the time, but then also seeing her, seeing someone that looked like me, seeing somebody that like was just so good at what they did. She was just such a huge inspiration for me. Even at, I believe I was 14 years old at the time. Um, and then just being able to watch her career and see what she's done is something that I deeply admire. And another person that's also in the industry that I really admire is Joy Woods. She currently is in The Notebook. And not only is she like a phenomenal singer and has gone like viral for that, but she's also just an amazing dancer and actor. Like she's the true triple threat, I believe, of our generation in theater. And sometimes I feel like she doesn't even get recognized for all of that. And I think it's her career that I, look up to and hope at some point, not to have the obviously may not have the exact same career as she does, but she's just somebody I really also look up to, who is just like currently killing it and crushing it and just giving me, inspiration to keep going.
Absolutely. I love both those answers. Great. Those are great answers. Not that you're wanting my opinion on it, but I was like, yeah, okay, yeah. Renee, yeah, absolutely. Joy. Joy is amazing.
Yeah.
Um, was dance your first love ultimately before singing? Because it sounds like it is. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, especially because that's what I started with first. And not only like when I got started in dance, what's so great was I was exposed to so many different styles in such a short period of time. So like ballet, tap, jazz, hip hop, and also I danced competitively as well. And like my dance studio, we would go to different dance conventions. So my life was very heavily revolved around dance for a while. And then once I got into musical theater at 7 years old, I was like, okay, yeah, I can sing, do a little tune and and I can kind of learn to do both together. But it's interesting because it's taken me a while to kind of be confident in my singing voice during my journey, because I think also with the theater industry, there can be such a separation between like you are a singer or you are a dancer, and that, oh, dancers may not always be the strongest singers. And so, it's one of those things where as I've grown in my training and like throughout college, singing was definitely something I had to figure out, my confidence in that, and find a way to fall in love with that too, because I love singing. But because I got started with it a little bit later than dance, I always feel like that's something that I'm constantly needing to work on and
Mm.
to again just build my confidence with. So yes, dance was my first love, but I also love singing as well. But yeah, dance came first.
Before musical theater, what was your sort of dream for your dance career? Did you want to do ballet professionally, or, be a part of Alvin Ailey? Because we've bonded over talking about Alvin Ailey in the past.
Yeah, I absolutely like looked up to like wanting to dance for Alvin Ailey, or just honestly to be in some production of a Nutcracker. And I sadly had never got the opportunity to train on point. And I remember my mom at some point, she was like, I can't wait till train on point. I would love to see you do that. But for some reason, we just never made it happen. So I remember thinking at some point I would be a point dancer, and like maybe I would get to dance in the Nutcracker. Maybe I would get to, come to New York and dance with, do American ballet theater and all that kind of stuff. So there was definitely uh, a moment in time where I was like, I would love to be a ballerina, I think specifically. And then, of course, seeing what Alvin Ailey has done, that was also another avenue that I was interested in going into as well.
And you do have a beautiful singing voice, I just have to say that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Was it's the truth. Was there a song that brought out the confidence that you had been longing for at maybe an audition song or something that you felt so close to and connected to that really brought you the confidence that you'd been wanting for?
That's a really good question. Um, I think it really came down to singing material that I loved, and actually this sounds kind of crazy, but material I actually wanted to sing, because I think sometimes in college, right? Like when we're like if I'm in a singing class or if I'm taking a voice lesson, there are times where we're given material, like we don't necessarily choose what we get to sing. And I think because as someone where I was trying to figure out my voice and trying to figure out, this what style suited me best, I think I felt more limited when I was in school, and not feeling like I was able to choose what I wanted to sing. So then I remember coming out to New York and doing so many different types of auditions, and especially now with pop rock musicals being a thing, um, I found my confidence in actually in pop music and
Mm.
in R&B styles as well. And I just love me some Aretha Franklin. And one of my favorite like go-to songs that always makes me feel good. It's such a simple song. Everyone knows the song, but it's You Make Me Feel Like a Natural Woman. That's like the song that always I just feel so calm when I sing it, and it just grounds me so much. And it's like any opportunity I get to sing that song in an audition room, I do it. And I think for some reason, through that song in particular, I found this sense of confidence of like, oh, okay, like this is also my sound. I'm not trying to sound like Aretha or Carole King. I feel like I'm actually using my own voice and
Mm.
using my essence in that song. And I don't know what it is. It's just that song in particular that
I
grounds
love
me.
that you say that you're trying to just be you and not
Yeah.
try to sound like somebody else. I absolutely love that. And that's a perfect song for when you audition for Beautiful. I'm just putting it out there. We'll be seeing you in a Beautiful production soon, I'm sure. What was your first major professional role on stage?
Okay, probably Aladdin, what I did in Aladdin, which I know we will talk about that a lot, but that was definitely major because it was my Broadway debut, but
Yes.
yes. But I would have to say, honestly, it was going on as Tiana, like as your understudy, because
Mm,
again, as someone who has been trained as a dancer, who was never the most confident in singing, I had never in my life sung a full song on stage in front of an
really?
audience. That was my yes,
Wow.
really. Yes, yes. Yes. So I think that to me was very major because I felt I really wanted to make myself proud and be like, I want to show myself that I can do something like this. And so just getting the opportunity to do that, I think was huge for me and
Mm,
allowed me to just have more confidence and want to do more of that, want to go for more opportunities where I can sing more on stage. Um, so I would say that was definitely a major uh, role for me. And then I guess to kind of take it back a little bit further, my first professional show ever was The Little Mermaid at the Moonlight Amphitheater in
oh,
Vista.
okay, nice. Oh, that's
Yeah,
right. You did say you'd done that before.
yeah, yeah. Yes, because that was the first time I did the show. And um, I guess in a way that was major because that was the first professional show I've ever done, the first show I was ever getting paid for, and
Mm,
I was playing one of Ariel's sisters. So again, being able to sing a little bit in that was
yes.
really great for me as well.
What was your sister name?
I was Arista,
Come
okay.
on, Arista. Absolutely. The sassy one, I guess.
Yes,
Because
yes.
everyone goes Arista whenever they say I played Arista. They always say it that way. I love it. So, what was your favorite part about working at Tuacahn? Since we just talked about it.
Mhm. I would say I don't think I don't think there's anything more beautiful than performing on that stage. I mean, I truly have never seen anything else like it or experienced anything else like it to be able to perform outdoors with this gorgeous canyon in the background. It's just you can't beat that. And then the fact that not only that, we're performing for like 2,000 plus audience members every night.
Yeah,
Um, so I feel like that was really, really special, just the actual act of performing in such an incredible environment. But also, of course, like I feel the best part of any production is just the people and the people that I surrounded myself with. And like, I just remember, I don't know if you remember this, but I think we were rehearsing your section in When You Wish. We were doing the Tiana stuff. And all of us who were in the number, I think it was before rehearsal, we were all just chilling, just talking. And all of a sudden, I think like Wilkie started playing the piano. Um,
I know which moment you're talking about.
I know what you're talking about. Like
Someone has it on film
AJ,
somewhere.
AJ, Gary, like everyone just started like hitting the tambourines, and there was just a
Yeah,
whole. It
we
was
went to
just
church.
we went to church that day, and it was just so joyous. And I will just never forget that moment because I just feel like that's just one little portion of one little speck of joy that we experienced. And then like our game night that one night,
Oh
like
yeah.
it cracks me up because it's just those moments that are just so just perfect in that time and place and moment and just and our Game of Thrones nights, of course.
Oh my gosh, I forgot about Game of Thrones. That's right. That was the season finale, well, series finale
Series finale,
of
yeah.
Game of Thrones. So we were watching them every Sunday. Oh yeah, I remember that like the first week or so. You were so sweet to like I'll let you watch it with me. So I was like, I have to watch my Game of Thrones.
Yes, I was like,
Yep.
we were serious, and then we recruited some others. We had another
Yes.
little watch
It
party
became a
every
serious watch party.
day.
I forgot about that. That's you know what, for me, it would honestly be anytime I got to sit back and not be in a scene, especially When You Wish. Like I loved watching the Mulan section when you guys would come out.
Yes, and I was like,
Yes, I still remember the choreography. Oh man, yeah, you and me, Yuki and everybody.
Yes, yes.
Love that scene. I used to just love watching that one, or watching the Moana section too. I especially loved watching it backstage.
Yeah, that was a really cool section of the show, and it closed out
Mhm.
one, and yeah,
Just watching, listening to Alize belt her face off.
she is so talented. It's
She
like
really
crazy.
is. Oh
And at
my
that
gosh, my
age
little
too.
Momo.
Yeah, like man, like everyone was just so talented and incredible. So I just feel like it was such a, again, just such an honor being amongst just such talented and kind people. So we had a great time. We had a little good ourselves a good time.
How was it when you first performed on Broadway and just being in Aladdin?
Okay, so my first of all, I'll start with my Broadway debut was like one of the most incredible nights. Like it is still one of the highlights of my life, really. And basically that night, well, I'm sure we'll kind of we'll go all the way back, but that night in particular, I had about 25 friends and family come to my very
Oh,
first show.
wow.
And I just remember the cast being so incredibly supportive. And I don't really remember my first show because I was so focused and so present and wanting to make sure I did everything right that I don't really remember what happened. Um, but what was really cool is that during Friend Like Me, the big number, there's a section where the genie kind of will say, maybe do a little bit of improv. And at the time, he had said during the number, "Happy Broadway debut, Nicole." And then everyone who was
Oh,
there like screamed and hollered. And it was just such an amazing moment. And basically, from then on, being able to perform, I did almost 500 shows with Aladdin during my time there. And
wow.
and truly performing on Broadway is just it's really a dream come true. Like it's also very hard, very difficult, but it was just such a joy to be able to perform a show like Aladdin, like a Disney show, and also for it to be an experience where so many of the people that came to see our show, it was like their first Broadway show, and like so many kids in the audience as well. And so being able to perform our story for families and children and people who have, visited New York for the first time, um, it truly was such a blessing to do that. So yeah, and I performed all the way up until this past April. And again, like my final show was very emotional. And um, the people that are at Aladdin and my cast and crew and company manage stage management, company management, just the most supportive people in the world, and truly are like a family to me. And I still, will see some cast members even now. And yeah, so it was just incredible.
When you were taking your bow for the first time, when did it hit? You're on Broadway.
Hmm. I Well, what's interesting is that one of the swings. She kind of says this to anyone who is making the Broadway debut. What she says is, it's like, okay, after you take your bow, just make sure you look all the way up, like where the lighting booth is, and
Mm.
just take it all in. Just take a moment and actually look all the way to the back of the house. And I remember doing that and thinking, oh my gosh, like I'm here, I've done it. And also, what's really special is after everyone does a bow together, we back up before the curtain comes down. And whenever there's a Broadway debut, they shine a spotlight on the person that just made their debut. So basically we back up and then we're just dancing, saying bye to people, and then the spotlight comes on me and everyone in the cast is like, she just made her Broadway debut, like let's celebrate,
Oh,
all of that kind of stuff. So that was definitely the moment. Like right after I bowed, I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing.
I got to see some of that on video. I was like, I'm bawling right now. I was like, I wish I was in the audience, but I'm like, I really just, I know I've already said this to you, but I want to say it to you while we're on video, even though it's not really personal. But I'm so proud of you. Like, it's
You.
so major, and it's just so amazing. I was like, yes, absolutely, yes. When you posted that you were put in the cast, I was like, absolutely, yes. So, can you walk me through the process of what it was like to audition for Aladdin? Just everything. How did it come about?
Yeah. So my story with Aladdin is pretty unconventional, but it's also a pretty full circle moment. So I'll kind of back up to years before I even got the first audition. But actually, when I was at Tuacahn, when I was doing the Christmas show Elf, I had gotten an email to audition for the Aladdin tour, and they were looking for an immediate replacement. And at the time, I was in Utah and I was like, huh, like I would love to audition for this if I can, but I am currently doing Elf. So I went to my director, who was Peggy Hickey, and sadly she has passed, but she was also my professor at one of my professors at UCLA, and I had such a close relationship with her. And so she was directing Elf, and I was like, let me just go to her and ask her if I could maybe go to this audition and then come back. So I go to her and I said, hey, I got this audition. I would love to go if I can, but also no worries if not, because my commitment is here in rehearsing for Elf. And she had asked me, okay, how many days do you need to go over to New York? And I was like, I need at least 2 days. And she said, I really can't, let you go for 2 days. Maybe one day, yes, but I can't have you do 2 days. And I said, you know what? It is totally fine. Like, I wasn't really that bummed out about it. But one thing she told me that I will never forget is she said, I can't let you go this time because you'll be gone for a little too long. And also at the time, we didn't have any swings or understudies. This was
Oh, wow.
pre pre-COVID, so there was nobody to come in and you know take over
Hmm.
and fill in if there were any issues. So that's also the reason, which makes a lot of sense. So she said, I can't have you go because you'll be gone for a little longer than I would like, but also I think you're gonna book it. And I was like, oh. She was like,
She
you
didn't
would
want to lose you.
exactly. She's like, you're gonna book it. You're gonna book that show. And if it's immediate replacement, it was immediate. It was like I would have to, go do
Oh,
that. Which some people might think, oh, like you should have just went and done it anyway. But I just knew, I truly believe it's like when it's my time, it'll happen. It's like I truly do believe that, like everything does happen for a reason in time. And so I was like, okay, whatever. So, anyways, I didn't do that. And then fast forward March of 2020, literally the day everything shut down, I was heading to a Aladdin audition for the Broadway. So
I'm
literally
sorry.
the
That's
last
not funny. I'm sorry. That's not funny. I'm sorry. That's
no,
not. Don't listen to me. Go on.
no, but it's the coincidence of it all. It's like, okay, I had all my stuff. I was going into Pearl Studios down in Midtown. I was ready to do this audition, and then they come out saying there's no auditions happening today because of the virus.
Wow.
So then, everything shut down. As we know, the pandemic was in full swing, and I actively was like, okay, gonna, I'm just gonna take a break. I'm not gonna do anything theater related. And I actually ended up getting a corporate job for 2 years. So I was working at an e-commerce tech company, a fully remote position, and I really, really enjoyed it. And there was actually a period of time where I thought I actually could do this for a long time. And I loved the team I worked with. I loved being able to do something new. And I kind of just left my theater career just kind of on pause, but I would still go to dance classes when I could. Like when things started to open back up, I was like, okay, I still want to dance for fun and I want to take voice lessons for fun and like just do it more as a hobby and something that could be fulfilling for me in addition to my corporate job. So then we will fast forward to it was November. Yeah, November of 2022. Um, I was here in my apartment. I was just working my job, and
Mm.
email, an email pops up from the casting director of Aladdin, from Tara Rubin, one of the yes, sorry, one of the casting directors emailed me and said, we have an audition for Aladdin on Broadway. We're looking for a female vacation swing, and we're also looking for a female identifying on stage ensemble member. And I
Mm.
was like, oh, okay, like I am interested in this, and I've always wanted to like get in and audition for the show. And so I accepted the audition. And I remember on the audition day, I was still working my corporate job. So I had my laptop fully open in the holding room working. And I think they had like two different groups that day, but I went into dance. And after we went into dance, I believe they made a cut then and there. And then we had, I think, three different songs. I can't remember, three or four different songs, like cuts of songs that we had to prepare along with a scene. And so I remember going in and singing the different songs. And there was a particular section of One Jump Ahead where the notes are kind of funky. And I remember singing it and I wasn't getting it right. And I literally did it like seven times. They said, try it again this way. Try it. Can you do it this way? And I'm like, I'm trying. I'm like, I'm really trying. Ironically enough, it ends up being the section I sung in the actual show, like a little solo line
Mm.
I had to do in this show. But so they had me sing through the material and I did some scales and then I did the scene. And I remember after I left the audition, I felt like an overwhelming sense of calm. Like I felt very good about what I did, but there wasn't any ounce of me that was like, I like need this. I'm like waiting to see if I get this. It was very much like I had this amazing opportunity to audition and I felt good about it and I felt prepared and that's that. Because again, it wasn't like I was actively going on auditions to get my next theater job. I was working my e-commerce job and also at the time I had a part-time job checking like vaccination cards for shows on Broadway. So I was
Mm.
like, just doing my thing there. And then that evening, I got an email saying that I was in the mix. And
Oh,
they
wow.
said, yeah, and they said, we may have you come back the following day, but we'll let you know. Find out they didn't need anything else from us. At this point, I was getting ready to fly home to San Diego for Thanksgiving.
Mm.
So right before I flew home, I got another email from the casting director, and she said, Nicole, like, you did a really great job, and things are looking really good for you. We're hoping that you hear something either by like today or Monday. And at this point, this was a Friday. So I think she said, you'll hear back either Friday, end of day, or Monday. And at that moment, I was like, what is this actually happening for me? Like, what's going
Wow.
on?
I have
Like,
never heard of this you're in the mix thing. That's interesting. Wow, okay.
yes, yes. It
That's
like I said,
that's the next level stuff.
at the time I was like, what is going on? Like this is so random and how is this
Yeah.
happening? So I got that second email being like, things are looking good for you and you should be hearing back at some point, end of day or Monday. So I fly home and Monday comes along. I'm in San Diego And I was like, oh my gosh, maybe I'll hear some news today. I was waiting and waiting. Monday came along. I did not hear anything. Tuesday came along and I didn't hear anything. And at that point, I did get my hopes up about it. And I was very upset once Monday and Tuesday passed. I'm like, okay, I don't think I'm getting it. And I did feel really emotional about it because I did get my hopes up. But then it was on Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving, where I was with my boyfriend at the time, and we were staying at a hotel, and I was working, and he was downstairs at the gym. And all of a sudden, I get an email come through from the general manager at Disney Theatrical, and she basically was like, "We'd love to offer you the position of the onstage ensemble track, also as one of Princess Jasmine's attendants. You start in a week." And
Whoa!
and that's how it all
Wow.
happened. Um,
Whirlwind.
it's a
Wow.
whirlwind, yeah. And then basically, I what was so great was because it was Thanksgiving, a lot of my extended family come to San Diego. So my extended family was there, like my grandma, my cousins, and
Oh,
so I have an announcement video telling everybody, and it's like just such a special moment being able to share that with everybody. So
oh my
that
gosh.
was the whole audition experience of
Hashtag won't he do it?
yeah, yes,
He
yes,
made he made you wait till almost Thanksgiving because your whole family was gonna be there so you can give the announcement. That's
yes,
beautiful.
yes.
That's awesome.
Crazy, crazy. But yeah.
What would be a highlight that you have from Aladdin? After 500 performances, what's one of the things that sticks out to you?
I would say, other than my Broadway debut, it was probably the the 10th anniversary performance was
Mm,
unbelievable. Um, so it was such a special night because, again, Aladdin has been on Broadway for 10 years. And at this point, it was basically a closed performance. And so it was invite
oh,
only.
wow.
And they invited, the entire like Alan Menken was there, and all these Broadway stars were there, and all the creatives and former cast members. And we didn't put on our usual show that night. We actually had a lot of really incredible Easter eggs throughout that show because it was such a
Oh,
special.
wow.
So we had former cast members come back, and we did this huge Friend Like Me number. Like, it was just like rows and rows and rows of dancers, and people in the balconies, people like in the mezzanine, people in the aisles. Um, and we had some of the former cast members come back, and like we would do character swaps. So like the former Genie would come back, and the original Jasmine, the original Jafar, and they would like swap
Mm,
out and sing songs during the performance. And it was just incredible. And then Disney threw this huge party, and we all dressed up like super formal, and it was just a beautiful night to celebrate the legacy of the show. And I just feel so lucky that I got to be a part of that as well, because it's like, oh, not only am I a part of performing in this Broadway show every night, we did get the opportunity to do such cool, just have amazing events happen throughout the year. So yeah, definitely the 10-year anniversary, and then also we did get to film a performance for the Thanksgiving Day Parade, for the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade,
nice.
and so that was so cool because, again, just like another opportunity um, that I was able to do because of the show. So
Absolutely. I mean, like, you're a part of history, Nicole. You're a part of Disney history. And I know it's probably odd to even think, has there ever been a time that you wanted to quit besides just like because of quarantine and COVID? Was there ever a time that you were like, I'm about to be done with this pursuit?
yeah, definitely. And honest, to be fully transparent, I'm kind of going through that period of time now where, I did Broadway. I got to do Aladdin. I got to do the show for about a year and a half. And then once my contract ended, now I'm currently back on the grind of auditioning and like doing the next thing. And I think the reality of going from doing that to like, okay, now we got to reset and regroup and like go after the next thing. Um, it's just the reality of our industry of like, yes, you'll be working at times and then you won't, and then you'll be working and then you won't. You never know how long you'll go until your next job. Um, and then again, just the fact that I've checked off the list, like, yes, I've done a Broadway show, so I could stop. I don't have to like keep pursuing this if I don't want to. But I realize that, you know, even though that's such a big accomplishment, it's almost like it's still like the beginning for me. Like from that opportunity, there's so much more that I still want to do. And yeah, this industry can be very, very, very tough. And there have been plenty of times where I have thought, like, either what's the point or should I keep doing this? But it somehow always brings me back, and I always want to keep pursuing it
Keeps
and
pulling in.
keeps pulling me back in. And
Yeah,
so, yeah,
yeah.
so, and it's just like a passion that I've had for such a long time. And so, even when things get very difficult, I still do feel that my purpose is in doing this and like sharing what I have in this art form. So yeah.
I want to go back to theater because we talked about it. Why is theater important?
Yeah, I think it's very important because I think having a platform in like real life, being able to go into a theater and to watch a story unfold and to see the way it impacts people, and the fact that when they leave the theater they can walk away with either a new idea or new feeling, or maybe something they just watched healed them in some sort of way or provoked more thought in that way. um, and I think what's interesting is that there are a lot of opinions about the current Broadway landscape. And, you know, Broadway is very commercial nowadays, and or it always has been. But people talk about how there's a lot of jukebox musicals, or there are a lot of shows that talk about, you know, people, famous people, and bringing their stories. And I think what's important is the fact that like there's something for everybody, and that there are so many different types of theater that can bring people into the seats. And so I do think it's important to have your Disney shows, your jukebox musical shows, you know, your uh, original musicals as well. Um, I think it's just incredibly important because I do believe that art heals, and I truly believe that being able to express yourself can be so um, difficult in this day and age, with just the way that life moves so quickly. And it's like it can be all about business, it can be all about all these different things, but being able to just like sit down, turn your brain off, be able to watch something beautiful, um, I think is just like it's just a beautiful thing. And I think it's incredibly important in that way, and also inspiring new generations and kids to then carry on this sort of legacy to continue to make art in this way.
Absolutely. I do
Mhm.
have one last question. Before I do that, I want to say that your story, just listening to the Aladdin story and everything, is just so inspiring to me. So I know it's got to be inspiring to those that are going to watch this. But I do have to ask this question because
Yes,
it's the one that always gets people. Do you like yourself?
I do. I do. And as I think about it, of course, there are certain days where maybe, yeah, I feel amazing. I feel like my best self. I'm loving myself. And then there's some days where maybe I don't fully feel that way. But I think in general, I feel just so proud of who I am and proud of my journey so far, and knowing that my journey is ever evolving. And I feel too, as I've gained more experience in this industry and also just with getting older, I'm finding more of like who I am and being able to put that into my work. And um I don't know, it's just allowed me to, again, build that confidence and self love for myself, being able to just truly, authentically express myself in like my own way, in the way that I can. So, yes.
And you are a beautiful person inside and out. And
You.
I'm so grateful to God that we were placed in each other's lives 5 years ago. So,
Same here. Same here.
yes. So, thank you so much, Nicole, for being on here with me. And I want to thank everyone who's going to watch this. I'll see you next time on About That Life. Bye.
Bye.